Hello and welcome back to the Marketing Week podcast, brought to you with podcast agency 1860. I'm Molly Innes, senior reporter at Marketing Week, and we're coming to you from our flagship event, the Festival of Marketing, and I'm delighted to be joined by Roy Gardner, VP of Brand Activation at Adidas. Thank you for being here, Roy.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
So I was going to lead, to be fair, now it looks really blunt. My first line was going to be Adidas has quite publicly been on a turnaround mission since 2023, which sounds like a harsh entry point. But, you know, a lot of people have, you know, especially at Marketing Week, we, you know, write about Adidas a lot, look to the brand a lot. And the change, I guess, since then, and also a lot of the changes that happened just before then in terms of, you know, brand and performance and all those kinds of things.
Yeah.
But I wanted to start by asking how sort of through marketing, the brand's been able to sort of course correct, if that's sort of the right word for it.
No, course correct would be a very good description of what we needed to do. I think the thing is, it's not a harsh place to start. The reality of the company in back end of 22 going into 23 meant that we had a change of CEO. So, I mean, that's usually a good signifier that commercially not all things are brilliant. And, you know, for a company that's, you know, ballparking turning over 20 billion euros a year, having an operating margin that's just above 1% and barely breaking even doesn't qualify as a great position. But I think the clear issue was, you're going to only lead a profitable and acceptable turnaround if you're going to do that from a brand point of view. That's what we have. Being able to realize, you know, more at full price sales, driving full margins through is what's going to enable your company to drive profitability up. So, off the back of that, I think the as I say, we had a change of CEO. It really helped. His background was in the sporting goods industry. He'd originally worked at Adidas before going off to Deichmann. He'd just actually had a period of being CEO at Puma, literally down the road in Germany. And, you know, someone coming back into that role who's got a deep knowledge of the sporting goods industry, understands the value of what a brand can do, and has a massive passion for sport, was a real energizer. So he should take a lot of credit, first and foremost. And I think also the other thing, before I talk about what marketing did, because you almost have to have how you're going to create conditions for change, you know, and if condition for change, number one is we're in a commercially unacceptable position, you then need sponsorship from the top, which effectively is the CEO endorsing this is the way we need to go forward. I know we can drive this out of the brand. And I think that's one of the other things that he has done very well is actually inject a lot of the confidence back into the company. Really, I think if you go through a period, and lots of companies went through a very tough period through COVID and, you know, trying to essentially survive in many cases, I think it's quite easy to lose your way. But actually to have someone come in who's both been in the industry, knows your brand, but can look in it from outside and go, I don't think you realize what you have. You know, you've got great product, a great archive, you've got great innovations, you've got great partners. Actually, there's a lot of great people here. What we've got to do is put that jigsaw piece together, you know, these jigsaw pieces together and remake a picture for the consumer. And you know, the big challenge we had as well also is if you looked out at the consumer data, you know, everyone knows who Adidas is, but no one could tell you what Adidas was. And I think that was the issue. We were a fuzzy brand to a lot of people. You know, it was kind of like, yeah, I really like it. Or what is it you like about it? And you get a bit of a struggle to articulate that. So I think that created an environment that said, well, okay, the brand has to lead this change. And therefore as a global marketing community, and that sounds a very big statement, but actually, you know, it was about coming together and going, what is it that we can do in marketing to essentially reset and regrow this business? And what it wasn't is a brand comms-led, a marcoms-led solution. It is a total marketing solution that has to be about making the right product, whether that's brilliant product in a sporting and performance space or brilliant product in a lifestyle space that's on trend and appropriate. But it was also about recognizing that the power of a global brand is best when it's blended with being local. So it kind of, we really, you know, we're embodying this thought about being a global brand with a local mindset. I think getting everyone culturally to buy into what's the recipe for how Adidas is going to do marketing. And what I mean by that is really just agreeing how we prioritize the brand first over the categories, how we prioritize what are the key stories that we're all going to talk about at roughly the same time, and the methods and the way that we go about deploying them. And in that context, we're also, I think, well, maybe we should just say humble enough to look outside into the marketing industry and go, what's going on with industry best practice? What is being spoken about? How can we embody some of those things and bring them inside? And all of that backdrop has ultimately led to kind of rethinking what the brand proposition is about, trying to understand how sport is viewed today and how people participate in sport. And that ultimately gave rise to a new creative idea, a new creative direction, ultimately summarized by "You Got This" as our end brand summary thought, which was a move on from where we'd been with Impossible Is Nothing, which had previously been where we'd been, because it felt much more appropriate to embodying who we are and what we wanted to be as a brand. And I think also, again, just remembering to center ourselves. And I personally really dislike the phrase Gen Z, because I just think trying to define a group of people through this age group and the rest, and it just gets thrown around. But actually, if you step back and just ignore the title and just go, look at this age group, look at actually the impact they have both in sport, in the sportswear market. They are disproportionately own a commercial value in the market. So not only is there the sort of influence effect through culture and attitude and the way that sets trends, but there's a direct commercial value to it as well. So although I'm delighted for anyone, any age, any sport, any passion to buy the 3 stripes, actually then thinking about, okay, how are we honing in, thinking about how we connect with that group of people in as a focus point. Again, I don't particularly like the phrase, but think of it as a muse, so to speak, and really talk about the brand and make sure we connect with them should then lead to payoff. And then that's all of the ingredients, and then it's kind of then doing it. That's the then tricky bit, but it's been going quite well in that context.
Yeah, amazing. I mean, there's so much to pick up on there. First thing I was going to say is the amount of people that will criticize Gen Z to me, and then I'm sort of like, I'm Gen Z too. They're like, oh crap.
No, but all I'm going to say, they're absolutely critical for. I mean, that's what 15-16% of the population in the sportswear market accounts for about 30-32% of the value. You can't ignore that. That's the centerpiece of what's going to drive your marketplace. So of course, there's and then obviously next then is considering how are they going to connect next with Gen Alpha and making sure that we're ready and evolving with them, with whether it's the right product or the right associations, the right partnerships, marketing in the right way, embracing gaming, for example, and how we turn up in gaming in interesting and different ways. So we're doing an awful lot of work in that space, as well as using all of the traditional marketing channels that you would expect us to use, because they still work too.
And we'll come on to that. I wanted to ask first, though, about obviously, you spoke about the massive change and how the business was performing before and new CEO. Thinking specifically about your team, the marketing team, obviously they can, when you might see headlines around, Adidas brand transformation or other businesses going through a similar process and changing maybe how the team's structured or what it looks like. And even if people know that the way they've been doing something isn't the right way, it can sort of bring a lot of sort of like fear to the surface, not always like rightly so. But how are you able to take sort of your team on that journey? Because I know obviously these things don't happen overnight, but sort of building the confidence back into them as well that you can sort of turn this around.
Yeah. I think we're very fortunate that Adidas is a very collegiate culture. It's very team-based, team-orientated. It's a pretty flat structure. Yes, depending on which country you're in or otherwise, hierarchies can play their different role in a little bit. But in essence, there are no real barriers for who could speak up and who can talk to anyone. So I think that makes a big difference in terms of the acceptability for that, and an encouragement that, good ideas don't really care where they come from. If you've got a good idea, come and talk about it. And then it's about creating, if you've got that as a sort of backdrop culture, it's then how do you live that? How do you bring that to life with people and actually demonstrate that that's what you practice as a leader, if you will. I think showing people humility, showing you don't think you know everything, admitting you don't know everything. The best example, very personal example for me, as part of my role, I inherited all of the performance marketing team, all of the digital marketing team. So in terms of how the content looks on our site, how all of our CRM activity, all the rest of it, would I have described that in my background as I had deep functional knowledge of that area? Nope, absolutely not. So I will actively go around telling people I'm a digital tourist, not a digital native, and hopefully ask intelligent questions. So I think show you're interested and ask intelligent questions. And then for relatively let's say newer members of the team or otherwise, they can look at it and go, and insofar as however not impressive it is to have the word vice president in your title, I don't really think it is, but it is what it is, well, he's prepared to say that he doesn't know about this and he's asking questions about this. You're trying to create that environment that's like, it's okay to not know as long as you're interested and ask and you want to learn. I think that matters a lot as well. So I think it's that. And then more specific and functionally, I kind of go back to that bit where we've been quite focused on creating this Adidas way of marketing. So there is I'm not a massive fan of this phrase either. This is going to be a podcast of phrases we don't like, by the way. But anyway, we have a marketing playbook, but it does try to embody the way we go about approaching marketing and where the evidence has come from, why the thinking is the way it is. It's not just, well, we've decided that's the way. It's kind of like, how can we link this back to, evidence of either things that we've done before or best practices that are in widely known in industry, been spoken again about today, been spoken at previous Festival of Marketings. So it's not new stuff. It's all out there that everyone can know, but it's about trying to embody it and go, no, but if we can codify that and then mix it with an Adidas special sauce, because we do stuff that and the brand and the way we're able to operate, I think we always talk about this in a sponsorship terms or a brand partner terms. Take any football club, they're surrounded by lots and lots of partners, lots and lots of tiers of partner, but there's not many brands who get to run across the white line with the players and be part of the game. And actually that puts you in a very special place. So actually we have, I guess, our partnerships, we don't really call them sponsorships, our partnerships where it's about embedding ourselves into that. So we've got a bit of a unique way that we can also, that gives us, I don't say advantages, but opportunities to bring our brand to life through the lens of that with industry best practice, and hopefully ends up making Adidas feel special.
And I think that links to what I know you spoke about, going back to Adidas as a sports brand and not as a lifestyle brand, or not a brand that's leaning so, and you've seen this with a lot of sports, fitness, that kind, brands in that space, going very heavily in on sort of the lifestyle business. But Adidas is at its core a sports brand. Can you tell us a bit about how you, if anyone was wondering,
we're a sports brand.
But how, again, it feels like an obvious focus to, like, of course, but it wasn't maybe positioned like that before, and like how the importance that is to the business, like you referenced there, like, being able to be the kit partner of, I don't know, like this season Liverpool, for example, and whether that would have happened before.
I think it would say if at any point the consumer didn't understand we were a sports brand, then we failed. So, we are absolutely a sports brand first and foremost. That is in our DNA. And let me then just juxtapose that with the reality of going, and of course, the majority of sports product is not bought to play sport. So the commercial opportunity is in product that's not bought to play sport. But we're a sports brand. But the reason that that's important is it's only our permission to be interesting to the consumer, our permission to hopefully appeal to the consumer, comes from authenticity and credibility. And that authenticity and credibility can only come from who we are, which is being a sports brand. I wanted to maybe give you an idea of what does that mean. There are so there has been codified into the company the basically the Adidasler principle. So Adidasler is the founder of Adidas. That's where the name comes from, if you didn't know. And there are 31 principles. I have no idea why there's 31, but anyway. But principle number one is only the best for the athlete. So that is at the core of what we do. So, actually, this weekend, today, we're about to launch the next ball for the World Cup in LA. It's being launched in New York tonight. The Trionda, which is what it will be called, has been obsessed on by our product team for a long time. And you might probably be wondering, how can you obsess about a football? Because surely it's a football. No, it's not just a football. It's all about utilizing, big event opportunities as a moment to restate what can we bring to this product. It's an iconic product. It's the core of the game. And it's got the next evolution of like connected ball technology, so that we're trying to aid and speed up decision-making in the game to make the game better. You can take your rest of the influence off the rest of that as to whether you think that's working from what happens off the back of that. But, at its heart, that's us integrating technology in what we do. Or about 3 weeks ago, we ran a project, or we came to fruition, called Chasing 100. That was a mission to work with some ultra marathoners to see if we could help one of them break the time barrier for running 100 kilometers, so 62 miles in less than 6 hours, which has never been done. And, the effort that the innovation team went into, we were using prototype versions of our top shoe, super lightweight versions of the shoe, custom made to the individual athlete, varying cushion properties, foam densities, outsole constructions, and then adopting cooling product and cooling jackets that we developed with Mercedes in our partnership in F1, and bringing that to the athletes, because maintaining athletes' body temperature to try and produce optimal performance. So this is the level of kind of, let's call it geekiness if you want, but obsession that we go to in going, no, we're a sports brand and that's what we're about. But that's not to recognize or not to dismiss at all the role that, sport has increasingly in connecting into culture. And I think if you think about other areas of fashion, art, entertainment, music per se, how that all connects. So we're not ignoring that. And again, I've sort of talked about the commercial reality of what that means. But when you've got that opportunity, for us equally, partnering with designers like we've done for years with Stella McCartney, with Yohji Yamamoto, or we partner with Grace Wells Bonner, or with Bad Bunny, or with Pharrell, or with Stormzy, or whoever, they're influencing and shaping product, influence and shaping how we might go about doing our marketing. And fundamentally also, for us, we need to be connected to culture, because we make product for kind of every tier and level of distribution. So for us, it's important to be at the top end of distribution as equally as well in very mass distribution. But therefore, we've got to be connected to trends and being on point in a lifestyle environment. And that can't all just come from product we've made in sport. So we're kind of trying to do the whole thing. But fundamentally, if you stripped it all away and said, what's that brand that you work for? No, I work for a sports brand. And so we would say we're a sports brand first and the culture born from it second. But it's as a whole thing is the way we would talk about it.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting. And also how neither of those areas, you mentioned the cultural partnerships. You didn't mention Oasis when you did your list, which is a surprise.
Well, there's Oasis. Yep, there's Oasis. Yep.
Just, whenever I've been like, I'm doing this interview, it's like, can you ask about Oasis? And I was like, actually, I need to ask about the marketing fundamentals. Thank you.
No, but that's about, so we've been, ultimately, I mean, maybe that's a perfect example. Yes, Oasis are a global brand, but at the end of it, the core is obviously in the UK. So from a connection to music point of view, we've just been in the process, you may have seen, we've been relaunching the Superstar, representing the Superstar, trying to basically recontextualize that for kids today, if you want to put it in that phrase. A lot of that through association with music. So we've been involved doing a kind of whole summer of sound set of activations, and therefore the partnership, particularly for the UK team with Oasis, was entirely credible because for any of you who got historical, I don't know, let's go and look it up on YouTube. Go look at what Oasis were wearing in the 90s. Funnily enough, they were wearing 3 stripes because we were working with them then. So it was a very natural partnership for that to rekindle at the point that Liam and Noel were coming back and deciding to do, represent their brand effectively to the consumer. But equally, for the French team, they've been partnering with French artists that you guys wouldn't necessarily know, but that matters about, and that's local brand mindset, but brought through this thought of connecting the brand through music and the integration that music has to culture and the relevant role it can play for us in a lifestyle space. So I didn't just miss it out, I promise.
No, I was joking. I think, and you've mentioned it a few times while I've been talking, and also it's been a real common theme of the interviews I've done for the podcast today around the fundamentals of marketing, and it just coming back to that.
Yeah.
Because I guess from an external point of view, obviously you'd think Adidas, of course, is paying attention to these things, but then, you mentioned the secret sauce thing and that side of it. And I said before, I hate that word, but I'm happy for you to use it. It's your space. But on the fundamentals and the importance of driving that, because I think a lot of marketers, even if they believe that's important, it's still getting missed quite in other organizations.
Yeah, look, I think there's a couple of things. One is that there's one of the easiest things to think about is that people can almost like jump to execution very quickly, and if it's not founded and rooted in a kind of core strategy of why are you doing what you're doing? Do you understand what your consumer problem is or your consumer opportunity is, and are you going about things the right way? And I think there's a lot of conversation at various conferences about marketeers being disrupted and distracted by the next shiny thing. And I think if you go back and you go and maybe that's, if we go back to what we started at when we started talking about the challenge and the situation that the brand was in, maybe that was a good opportunity for us to pause, look outside and go, maybe there's something we can learn from outside and then bring that into how we go about marketing. So, I think at its sort of core, yes, we've all been reading Byron Sharp. Yes, we've all been reading, Les and Peter's book. Yes, we've been paying attention to System 1 approach to sort of creative testing. Yes, we've been revisiting the IPA, also thinking about Walk's creative effectiveness ladder and trying to blend all of that together and go, okay, how do we apply that to the way we bring that to the way we start talking about the brand? And that's been at the fundamentals. So when I reference that marketing playbook, if you scratch away at the surface, where's the evidence? The evidence is in those pieces. And we're then saying, okay, but what does it mean for us to go and reach a load of light buyers? Are we really sure we're being consistent in what we do? And, some of the fundamentals are so fundamental that you really sometimes, I think brands can get away from them. You just need to stop and make sure you've got those building blocks in place. And then it's about how you apply it. It's one of my hobby horse phrases, not secret sauce this time, I promise you, which is, marketing is easy. It's just doing it that's difficult. And I think that's the bit that's the magic comes. So you have to take those learnings and go, okay, but what does that mean? And then how do we apply it and how can we do it consistently? But I would also say that the other challenge that we had, we talked earlier about kind of creating sort of cultural conditions for the teams to do it. I think one of the things that I think has changed since I started as a marketeer is that I came in through FMCG. I had a very broad grounding through Unilever in terms of the fundamentals of marketing. I guess that's how I learned what marketing was. I think if I look at the background of how a lot of more junior people join now, it's kind of the mission is go and acquire a breadth of skills and an inquisitiveness into how the marketing levers, how the marketing touch points all work. And you will have people maybe have got a little bit too much of a sort of vertical perspective of things. And it's kind of like the mission, therefore, and some of the reason of the marketing playbook is to help educate internally, because maybe everyone hasn't spent time reading how brands grow or Les and Peter or whatever it might be. But actually we need to encourage them to understand that, because they then need to go and live it and practice it in all of the activation that we do.
Yeah, definitely. And that's something, so I spend a lot of my time writing about, world of work and careers and hiring, and at that sort of junior level, like you say, sort of being told to niche down because it's so hard to get a job in marketing at the moment at that level. It's like if you can go as specific as possible, and then businesses on the other side, if they're stretched or they're, they want someone to come in and be able to do it straight away, they're more likely to want that sort of niche role. So it's such a difficult
it's
thing.
Tough. It's tough, but I think that's more about just trying to encourage. Like, it sounds really obvious, right? But don't lose your love of learning, right? Don't stop asking questions. So if I kind of go back to that reference of digital tourist and digital native, I could have gone, oh, I don't really need to know about that. I've got a team who can tell me about that and I'll just trust them. But it's kind of in me to want to know more about it because I want to understand it, because I think that's actually respectful of the function and the people working in it, respectful of the team that I'm working in. So if you just come down and go, well, you're working with more, entry level people, they've only, let's say, recently left university or otherwise, it's kind of like, it's not that learning's over, it's kind of learning's just beginning. And it's kind of like, take the best of what you've got and then just keep asking questions and keep kind of put yourself in a position to acquire more knowledge and try and build, try to figure out what kind of career in marketing you want. But actually, you're going to give yourself such a great foundation if you can build yourself a wide pyramid, a wide base, and then pyramid up from there in an area that might be, oh, that's particularly floated my boat, that's where I want to focus. But you do come across people and they kind of get themselves into a point where you've gone yourself quite niche, and from a career development point of view, we'll be in a position to go, I'm not sure that we're going to ultimately be able to develop your career a lot more. And that it might be to go, okay, you might have to, and that's totally fine, by the way, if people have chosen that that's their route and that's their passion, but it's then recognizing they might have to jump outside to go, I'm going agency side, or I'm going more into another area where I can get some more senior experience, because it's very hard for companies increasingly as you get more senior to offer you, actually things get broader. They don't tend to get, things get more narrow, not more broad in terms of what you get the chance to do, and being able to develop you much beyond the point where you've learned at a more junior level is tricky.
Yeah. And I think whilst we're on that topic, I wonder, I'm sure there'll be people listening to this who are either early into their careers in marketing or are considering a career in marketing or sports marketing specifically. Yeah. What is something that makes someone stand out to you, or a certain, whether it's skills or capability or whether it's personality, like what do you look for?
I think I look for, if I accept that they can tick the box functionally for whatever role they're applying for. So let's get beyond the kind of, do I think you can do this job? Then I'm looking for the person to make an impression on me. I will always ask someone in an interview at some point in there, okay, I've been interviewing lots of people today. Tell me, when I sit down with a cup of tea at the end of the day, why should I remember you? And that's not about something that it's not about being the most extrovert personality or whatever, but there has to be something about your story. I have to believe in you and feel a bit your passion. I think that matters a lot. I want to feel that you really want to come and do this job, and not that you sort of want to do this job. I still surprised that you get to interview people where you're not sure they've really spent the time thinking about the role they're actually applying for or the company that they're applying for. And I find that astounding. This is a pet peeve. Okay. Pet peeve only because in the universe of the world of Adidas, please never write it with a capital A. So don't write a capital A in your application at any point, or don't, it's just like stupid stuff that you go, just pay attention to the way that the company presents itself, because that's what they want you hear back, because they want to hear, I'm sitting here employed by, whatever, company X, company Y. So I've signed up and I believe in what I'm doing. So come here and make me feel like you believe in this company too. It's pretty basic stuff to ask for, but it's quite surprising sometimes when you don't get that from people.
We've covered so much. Thank you. I mean, there's advice in there. There's so much interesting stuff. Really appreciate you taking the time. So thank you.
Absolute pleasure.
Thanks.